Welcome back to the Takeout. Olivia Troye departed the first Trump administration in 2020 and then became an outspoken critic of the president, those closest to him. Now, she switched parties and is going to seek office as a Democrat running to represent one of the newly redrawn congressional districts in Virginia. Newly redrawn if those district lines hold, but that's another topic. I want to bring in our political panel. Democratic strategist Kendra Barkoff Lamy, who served as an advisor to then Vice President Biden, and Republican strategist Marc, who you well remember, I do for sure, served as former Vice President Mike Pence's chief of staff. Great to have you both with us.
Major, thanks for having us.
Marc, I'm going to start off with you. What do you think? Olivia?
Olivia's probably far more comfortable in the Democrat Party.
Why?
Well, she was a career staffer of DHS. I think present company excluded. A lot of journalists are pretty lazy and cited as a national security advisor to Pence. Pence is national security advisor with Keith Kellogg.
Yes.
Keith hired Olivia as part of his team because typically on your national security staff, you take somebody from Homeland Security, somebody from the CIA, somebody from State Department. You have all the agencies represented.
All of them repped.
And she was the one he picked as a career employee. It'd be sort of like saying Vindman is a Trump national security advisor. Is a comparison. And so Olivia was a career employee for the federal government who was assigned to the vice president's staff. And she's expressed her disagreements with the president since leaving, and she's probably more comfortable with the Democrat Party.
And your underlying point is she wasn't a partisan and wasn't even nominally on board, as you could tell.
She was not a political appointee for our team. And look, I still think that the 7th District, who knows how the Democrats are going to redraw things in Virginia, but it sounds like Terry McAuliffe's wife is running in that seat too. And so I think it'll be a pretty competitive primary for her to pick off.
Kendra, 2 questions about Olivia, number 1. And number 2, Democrats are a little bit uneasy about how the vote April 21st on redistricting, because they have to approve it by the will of the people in Virginia and the Commonwealth, is going to go. Most Democrats believe they're going to win, but it's a little closer than they thought it would be a couple, 3 weeks ago.
Well, look, I think we have to take a step back and remember where we started with all these redistricting. Texas. Trump started it all.
You mean Spanberger promising she wouldn't do it when she ran?
I seem to remember, if you go back in time, though, Texas started it long before her campaign kicked off.
Not gonna work out for us either.
And so I do think you have to go back and look at where this started from to move forward. And, we can all pontificate what's going to happen on the voting day. The voters are going to come out and decide what is or is not going to happen. But there's a lot of people that are getting in the race. That means that there's a lot of excitement in the Democratic Party. People want to run. They want change. They are seeing what's happening in Washington, D.C., and have decided they're all going to throw their name in the ring. And so that's exciting.
I want to ask
you. Really so disingenuous, though. I mean, to say this is going to be temporary. I look forward to those Democrats who are elected saying, I was only a temporary member. I'm stepping aside in 2030 when we redraw these districts.
I mean, it is possible. It is possible that after a census in 2030, these district lines could be going back to the bipartisan commission that the Commonwealth of Virginia has. It's possible.
You believe that, Major?
I'm just saying it's possible. You don't believe it.
I certainly don't.
You believe that Republicans who redraw mid-session and Democrats who redraw mid-session or midterm are going to keep those lines
they
because
have incentive to want to hold on to their jobs.
Right. You got it. Okay. Because you worked for Vice President Mike Pence, I want you, if you can, Marc, give me your opinion on, because sometimes Washington and reporters here can get focused and fascinated and fixated on a story that actually isn't true. And there's a fixation about the relationship between Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance, perceived as rivals in 2028. And every little thing that happens, Vance is either being pushed down or Rubio's being pushed up. Where do you think things are right now between the two of them and how their assignments are being apportioned by the president?
Well, look, that's a long question.
Yeah, it is. Run with it, sir. Go ahead.
I think there's a lot of questions about, right now people think JD's down, Marco's up, and yet all the polling of Republican primary voters continue to put JD at the top of the list. So there's a lot of intrigue that happens in D.C. that isn't necessarily the same out in most of America. I do think that the president in his State of the Union took time to compliment Marco as perhaps the greatest Secretary of State ever and said, hey, JD, how about a task force on fraud? And so I think there's a lot that plays into that, but I think also you're going to continue to see the president play them both, and he'll play other characters too, because he wants them all.
Do you think there's anything,
attention.
Marc, worth evaluating? Because lots of people in town are. J.D. Vance gets sent to Islamabad to deal with the Iranians, knowing that's going to be a hard thing, and Marco Rubio gets Lebanon and Israel dealing with the Lebanese-Israeli question, which may have a higher percentage of success. Therefore, Rubio gets the easier assignment. Vance gets the harder one.
I don't know about that. I think they both serve with the pleasure of the president.
Of
but
course.
I think probably, I would guess that Marco would probably be less excited about trying to find some sort of settlement with Iran unless they give up all their nuclear weapons, not some 5 or 20-year temporary ban, and probably is supportive of the military conflict in ways that JD hasn't. It sounds like JD was selected by Iran and Pakistan to be the participant there. So,
Kendra, you've been in the vice president's office. You know how these things go. How do you evaluate this?
I think this is a Trump puppet game. I think he enjoys television. He enjoys the drama. He enjoys the theatrics. And look, I'm sure
And he knows all of us are going to sift these tea leaves endlessly.
1,000%. And he sits back and he watches this on TV and he loves it because it brings attention to everything that he's doing, because that's what he loves to do is get attention. And so I think there's going to be this game for a little while. You're going to see up, you're going to see down the pollings. But at the end of the day, I think what really matters is what we're going to see in November at the end of the day with the election and how voters are going to go to the polls and vote in record numbers for Democrats, because what they're doing in this administration is not taking prices down like they promised.
And Marc, you were with the vice president heading into what turned out to be a tough midterm in 2018. Do you sense the same atmospherics?
yeah, I was still actually working for the president at that point.
Okay, that's right,
Before I went
right.
back.
Legislative director, that's right.
Yeah, I think the atmospherics are similar. I think that in this case, to Kendra's point, I think that the number one issue is affordability. And I think that right now you still have inflation running at 3+%. And yeah, I know that people say, look, under Biden it was 9 and now it's 3, but the 3 is not measured to the 9. The 3 is measured to last year. So it's still going up.
And to promises the president made that people remember.
And I think in the midst of that, you still have higher and higher energy prices. So I don't think you've even seen, the peak yet. And so, yeah, I think it's a very difficult cycle for Republicans to be running right now.
And if you were to give advice, what would it be? How would you tell a Republican to try to deal with this right now? Just hope the president ends this sooner rather than later?
Well, look, I think there's been a lot of differences in economic policy between the first administration and the second. Major. I would encourage them to go back to the first administration policies. I think the first administration policies were deregulation, low taxes. This is now all of a sudden, hey, let's take Bernie Sanders' playbook and embrace state-owned enterprises. Let's decide we're going to put caps on credit cards and let's tariff the whole globe. And so when the policies are being pursued are, frankly, a lot more of the Democrat playbook than a Republican playbook right now, I'd encourage them to say, how about we get back to conservative free market policies?
Kendra, you're just going to let this go on, aren't you?
I will, because it's really enjoyable, in fact. But look, when you have the president's own advisors in the New York Times saying this is not what our MAGA base voted for in the election, and you have warnings in the New York Times by some of his people saying this war is not what we should be getting ourselves into, that is not a great sign for them. And they know that there's an inevitable election coming up. Gas prices are above $5 a gallon right now in some places. It's absurd, and that is not what voters want.
Kendra Barkoff Lamy, you get the last word. Marc Short, you had many words. I put the pressure on you, put the heat on you. You held up well. Thank you. Always.